Jennifer, you've been thinking a lot recently about the kind of connections between the personal and the political. And these are two areas that you're really passionate about. You really like to guide women in particular through personal transformation, connecting to their own power. But you also really like to guide women and just people in general into how can they contribute to the planet? How can they be a solution, part of the solution to these massive problems that we face and part of the new culture we need? How do you see those two issues integrating?
Well, I think it has to start somewhere. You have to start with having sovereignty. You have to start with realizing that you're the decider of your own body, of whether, who you marry or not, or how educated you get or not, or, what you do with your life or not. And sadly, there are a lot of women that actually aren't in that position. And even the ones in this country that really don't feel like it, they are. So I think it begins with a feeling of sovereignty. And if I could give that gift to women so that they get that they are sovereign beings, I would start there. But that isn't the end of the story. If the beginning of the story is realizing that we are the creators of our world, one of my favorite quotes, it was one of those moments when I heard it, like a ton of bricks fell on me that day. And it was Bashar, and he said, you are the universe that you formerly thought you were inside of. So you are the universe that you formerly thought you were inside of. So when you really get that, when you get that this whole construct of your life is being created and generated by you, then when you've got that you are a sovereign being insofar as you're creating everything that is your experience of reality, then it's time for, okay, well, what reality do I want to create? Mm-hmm. What is that Eden, as I said in our last conversation, that I do want to actually create, because it's up to me to create it. And so I like starting with women around feeling the sense of power and sovereignty in their beings, because you can't work with a woman on, solving the world's problems if she doesn't feel like she can solve her own, if she doesn't feel like she can decide on her own. So I like to be in the conversations with women to reconnect them to their power. Mm-hmm. And I kind of want to reclaim that word. Mm-hmm. That word has got a dirty rap.
Which
right?
word? Power?
Power. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's a good reason.
Yeah. Power has been used for very destructive purposes.
Yeah. Power corrupts. I mean, when I poll women and men too sometimes, and I say, okay, what comes up for you? And I say power. Right? Because they come to me and they're like, I want to be a more powerful this, or I want to be empowered. And I get a lot of that. And I say, okay, great. Well, then tell me what your relationship to the word is. And, there's some good things, confidence and strength and, things like that. But more often, there's a much longer list in the shadow. There's, dissociation, there's cruelty, there's aggression, there's selfishness, self-aggrandizement, there's all these words in the shadow. And I say, well, it's no wonder. There's no way that you'll be powerful in your life, because you'd have to sign on for being, an unempathetic, aggressive, egomaniacal, maniac. Like, why would anyone sign up for that? And so we cut ourselves off. At a very personal level from our power. And I think one of the most important conversations I want to be in with people is around realigning them around what is a transcendent value. Right? And so what I mean is, like, a transcendent value is something, if you multiplied it across all the population across all time, we'd all be better off. It's a win-win. So, like, love is a transcendent value. Compassion is a transcendent value. There's lots of them. And when you're in service to that kind of value set, and that's at the helm, that's what's deciding, you don't need to hold back. Right? All the governors that you put on your life to make sure that you don't turn into that raving asshole that you're hoping you're not, you can let go of. And when I feel most women in particular, there are like 1,000 pullbacks. It's like, I don't want to be too loud, but I don't want to be too meek. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be too opinionated, but I don't want to be a wallflower. I don't want to take up all the space in the room, but I don't want to go unnoticed. And it's like all of those are 1,000 pullbacks.
Yeah.
And then what's left is this, what I would call the 100% approved box after a pullback after pullback after pullback. And they're trying to span between two negatives. I don't want to be too this or too that, too much or too meek, too this or too this. And there's nothing left for them. And so they come off like at the knees, broken up at the knees.
Why do we as a culture do that to women? I mean, men get that to a certain degree too, but it's really the women get that so horrendously, where it's like there's different poles, and it's like you can't be too sexy, but you can't be too square or too masculine, and you can't be too feminine, you can't be too this, or you can't be too overt, but you can't be too and why do we it's like we're almost as a culture like we're trying to drive women crazy.
We are.
Why does that happen?
We're putting them into these tiny little boxes where there's nothing left for them to be able to express, and then we're sitting inside those boxes of what's 100% approved, going, I just want to be heard, I just want to leave a mark on this planet. I just want it to matter I was here. And we are cut off from the very thing that we want because we've made it this evil thing. And I mean, why have we done that to women? I mean, it's insidious. I mean, the why we could talk probably for hours about. The why is back to a culture where we decided it was right to own things. You know, what I understand from Leonard Shlain, who talked about the alphabet and the goddess. He wrote an incredible book. And at the advent of agriculture was the first time in our world that we started to own things. So this is mine and not yours. Before then, it was just tribe. Like, we didn't own each other. We all helped each other, right? And it was very communal. And with the advent of agriculture, we started to own things. And so then it was my wife, not your wife. This is my land, not your land. These are my crops, not your crops. And so that kind of idea had us, I think, wanting to own the things that are precious. And I think women and our bodies have become very precious.
So it's a method of exerting. Well, it's definitely a method of keeping people powerless. Because if you take a population, say, of women, and you get them totally confused about how they should be, and you're not supposed to be this, but you're not supposed to be that. Well, what the fuck am I supposed to be? If I'm not supposed to be that, but I'm not supposed to be that, you get them like totally in this fear, fight or flight, somatic state where they're afraid of doing the wrong thing.
Right.
Then those people don't have power.
They don't have power.
So
so you keep the women exactly where you quote unquote want them, which is in the home, serving whatever the masculine wants and needs are. And I think the men were afraid of the feminine version of power because it was for them, I think, a response to not feeling enough autonomy, right? I mean, if we go all the way back into those cultures that were tribalist, everything was for the tribe and of the tribe. So it was very communal. And so the only response to that is to say, I want my own life. I want my own decisions. I want to do this on my own. So then the masculine's born out of that consciousness. And so you move in that direction and you get men wanting to control. You get men wanting to seek power, to seek power over others. And so I think it's a natural response to a very communal drive. And it tends to go that way. The masculine tends to drive us towards freedom, and the feminine tends to drive us towards devotion, towards connection, towards interconnectivity. And those are fundamentally important human drives. We cannot exist without a feeling of sovereignty and freedom and be happy as a culture and satisfied and thrive. We cannot exist without love and devotion and connection in our lives. We will not thrive. And so it's got to be not an either or. And I think our world has pitted us against each other. Either you can be free and do what you want, but not have that devotion, that commitment, that connection. Or you can have devotion, commitment, connection. I mean, marriage is the example of that. But you have to give up the thing that's important to you, your freedom. And everywhere that we're asking people to make that choice, we're cutting them off from their power, because it's a paradox and it's not an either or, it's a both and. And so we have to create a world where we can have our freedom and our devotion. We can have our connection. We can have our sovereignty. And for most women, they've been cut off from their ability to have their own sovereignty, their own decision-making, and they don't realize it. They don't realize that they're 1,000 pullbacks away from actually being able to congruently, powerfully say what it is they care about. And so they take a backseat role. They don't speak up in the meeting when it's going a direction that they don't believe in. They instead gossip at the water cooler, for instance.
So for a woman who's listening who says, you know what, you're right, I am doing all these pullbacks and I'm sick of it, I want to stop. What's her next step?
Yeah, to me, there's a few phases. So I've kind of come up with this model that I use, that I really enjoy working with women around, and I call it the 4 faces of incorruptible power.
That's quite a title, the 4 faces of incorruptible power. Let's hear about that.
Yeah. And so first it begins with realizing what it is that is precious to you. What are those values that you hold dear, that you want your life to be an expression of? And really digging deep. Asking yourself, what are those? And realizing that those values, not the personal ones, not the I want to be sexy and I want my man to love me and I want all the ones that come from fear, but literally the ones that come from the wiser part of you, the ones that are the transcendent ones, the ones that if you multiplied it across humanity, that everybody would win. And when you can find your what your unique value set is, then you begin the process of being able to unleash your power, because you know that you're not going to hurt anybody if you're actually a more powerful woman. If you're about love, or you're about compassion, that's an incorruptible power, in my view, because if you do your job as good as you can and are loud as you can be, and you tell everybody at the rooftops, then all the fallout from that is that we have a world that's got more love or more compassion in it. Well, sign me up. I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Right? And so all of the safeguards, you can relax a little bit of the safeguard. Right? So then maybe you do speak up for compassion, because you realize that in the meeting, the thing that's missing is that they're not listening and they're not being compassionate. So you say, hey, I really care that this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And so it starts there.
Right. And I think what you say about having these be really fundamental values that are core to your being is important, because then you'll stick up for them. If there's just something that is just on the side or you're not sure about, but if it's let's say compassion, for example, and let's say a woman, I mean, this could be anyone, a woman, a man, but we're talking about women now. Let's say a woman is in a corporate meeting, a board meeting, let's say, and she's feeling there's not enough compassion happening right now in the meeting. Any board meeting could probably benefit from a dose of compassion. So let's say she sees something that's not in line with those values, and she speaks up and says, hey, this is not, we need to have more compassion in this instance. Now, a lot of women might be afraid of something that could happen and has happened a lot, which is that she's going to be dismissed. She's going to be like, oh, well, of course you're saying that because you're the woman, you just care about love, and this isn't about all those feminine values. This is about profit.
It's about our KPIs, and aren't we going to meet our metrics?
Let's get our metrics. Fuck all that hippy dippy shit about love. We don't need any love here. We need profit. Yeah. And that does happen. So it's understandable that women feel shut down. Yeah. So if a woman's afraid of that kind of shutdown where she's going to be dismissed as a woman because she cares about these values, how does she go about empowering herself in that situation? Yeah.
Well, to me, it's about developing a much more sophisticated sense of what's actually needed in the room, in the situation. And like I said, I mentioned the 4 faces, and I'll apply it to this situation, because there's a masculine form of power and there's a feminine form of power equally powerful. Like if you've been at the receiving end of a fully masculine form of power coming right at you, penetrating your entire being, you know the power of that. And if you've been caught up in the storm that's the feminine, you know the power of that force. But equally, there's an active form of power and there's a passive form of power, right? And so the sophistication I want to give women with this is an understanding of when is the right time to explore one of these faces of power. Because if you go in guns a-blazing and that's not what the space most needs and that's not the way it's going to be best received, then it's actually not all that powerful. If these guys, if you deliver it in a way that they can't hear, where they get defensive, where they think you're off track, where you can't speak in their language, where you've lost them, then that's the opposite of powerful. And so where the four faces come in. So the active masculine form of power, right? That's the one that everybody associates. This is, the brandishing tall man, orating into the space and everybody's listening and he's saying exactly what's so and he's like cutting through it with a knife, right? And that energy is penetration, right?
Yeah.
The masculine energy, it penetrates you. But the beauty of that energy, if you can't go there as a woman, is that if you can't have your values penetrate every space you're in, such that when I'm in a interaction with you, and your value, let's say, is compassion, because that's the one we brought up, then I need to be penetrated with your compassion. And that is a viable place for you to be able to be powerful if you won't. And many women shy away from that masculine form of power. But equally powerful is the passive masculine. So in a meeting, maybe what's needed is to actually hold space.
Can I pause you 1 second here?
Yeah.
I want to hear this dichotomy between the masculine and feminine and the active and
sure.
pacular. I just want to make sure I'm getting a little lost. How does that relate into you said there were these 4 steps. Is this the same thing? Oh, these are the 4. Okay, got it. So this is the 4. Okay.
This is the 4. And the reason I'm talking about these 4 is because you asked me, what does a woman do if she's worried about being shot down? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And my answer to that is that you feel into these 4 ways of being powerful. And that if you have some sophistication into feeling the space, which is actually women are wired for this. We're actually hardwired to feel everything and everyone around us. So all that it requires is you to actually tune in to what's your natural birthright. And so in that boardroom, if what's needed is to hold space, then you're able to do that. And what hold space is, it's stepping out. It's right, creating a strong, safe container and saying anything that needs to be here and expressed can and will be acceptable and fine in this container, and it is safe for you. Mm-hmm. And so it's the leader that doesn't have to fill the space with every word, but actually is a literal invitation so that others feel like they get to fill the space, that they get to add and contribute, and that they feel safer and more invited and called out in a way that they wouldn't be. And that's an equally powerful form of power. Mm-hmm. And I call that the passive masculine. Mm-hmm. So there's the active masculine and passive, right? Penetration and holding space.
Yeah. And
now that's masculine.
Yeah. And I would like to add just one perspective is that not to make it too complicated, but any of these 4, it seems to me, could have a light side and a shadow side. So penetration, if you're in a fire and your kids are in a fire, you want the firemen to come and penetrate into that fire and like get the kids out and solve it. Right. But penetration also, has all kinds of shadow sides from from war to aggression to rape to so. And it's not, again, let's presence again here, just for all our listeners. This is not about gonads. It's not about what reproductive system you have. It's not about whether you're biologically or identify as a man or a woman. These are energies and archetypes.
Archetypal energies that they're polarities that we can all relate to, right? Yeah. Our masculine and feminine, there's not a single person on the planet that can't relate to that. I mean, you transgendered or whatever.
There are some people who prefer to live without those concepts, and that's their choice. But this is for people. This is not to say that you have to live with the concepts of masculine and feminine, but a lot of people do live with those concepts and want to live with them, and so this is for those people.
Yeah, for sure. And whether you live with them or are revolting against them or pretending they're there or not there, they're just an expression of being human, right? This is just one of the many expressions. So we can call out an expression without having to label you as being inside of any particular box. In fact, the thing that I teach, the thing that I hold dear, I've been known to say the phrase, if there's a God that I worship the God of range. And that's practically a religion for me, where what I mean by that is that I'm not the kind of person that wants to put you in a box. I actually want to teach you how to be agile, such that at any given moment you could actually express and be anything that you ever wanted. Like, I want you to have maximal behavioral flexibility. Right? So that if you need to bring out the motherfucker, because that's what's needed, you can. If you need to bring out the mother who's all the way completely loving and unconditional, you can. And everything in between. And at that moment, you are Godding, in my opinion. Like, you are the universe being able to express in every way all at once. So, and then it's up to you to decide which one is the right one. And these four are one of my models to help you decide which one's the right one, so that you don't get overwhelmed with too many different.
I think this is brilliant. So it's a 2x2 matrix. We have masculine and feminine and masculine, active and passive. So we've talked about the masculine, both of the masculine. So now let's talk about the two feminine side.
The two feminine, because these are fun. These are exciting for me. And so the passive feminine, we'll go it in reverse order for fun. The passive feminine, if the active masculine is penetration, then the passive feminine is magnetism, it's attraction. The opposite energy. So these are archetypal. These aren't like just gender. This is literally physics, right? There's an energy that presses and pushes, and then there's an energy that pulls and attracts. And so the passive feminine is attraction. The passive feminine is seduction. It's love. It's the famous orators of our time, like Martin Luther King and some of these others, that when they speak, you don't know what it is, but you are just drawn to their cause. Like they rally you to their cause, and you're so attracted to who they are and what they're doing that you have to join them. Yeah. It's not about you telling people what to do. It's about you literally attracting people towards you. Yes. And that magnetism I call the passive feminine, and it's fucking powerful. I mean, we've gone to war over, women in their passive feminine attracting, seducing. Totally.
And I would say, we talked in our last dialogue about revolution and evolution, and I believe that the key difference between the revolution that is happening now and, let's say, in America, and the revolutions that were attempted in the 60s was that this is a love-based primary. It's about attraction rather than anger. Like, not that, of course, people are angry, not that there's not a place for anger, but anger is not an attractive emotion. No one is attracted to anger. So if we can make this happen in a way that attracts people, so they're like, I really like what those people are saying. I want to join them. I'm just drawn. In fact, I can't even help myself. I want to join what they're up to. That is a seductive kind of revolution. It's like it's a seductive revolution rather than an angry one.
Now, wouldn't you? I mean, doesn't that even sound good? I mean, like, don't you want to join something that you feel seduced into, attracted into, like you've fallen in love, like the same way that you devote your life to your partner in life and in love? Imagine leaders that understood power well enough to have you fall in love with them, literally. Yeah. Literally falling in love, not just with them, but with their ideas, with the cause, so that the level of commitment and devotion that comes from you is at the level of magnitude of the kind of love that you would give to your husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever. Now, that's the power of the passive feminine.
Yeah. It's probably, I mean, I would argue it's the most powerful.
Well, I would say they're all equally powerful.
They will, but if it's like you look at what makes the world go round, it's ultimately, it's like someone is attracted to somebody for some reason, and they're trying to make that, they're trying to garner the resources to like make that attraction come true. I think it's Yes, of course they're all powerful, but it's the
Yes.
one that I identify with the most.
Yeah, that one's a good one. Sadly, when I work with women, this one is often the most messed up for women.
Oh yeah, I mean it's been so
You think that
distorted.
this is the easiest one
Yeah.
for a woman. It's actually for her to harness her power around it is there's a lot of work for us.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I see that with women that I talk to who are very confused. Many women, of course not all, but many women I talk to seem very confused about how to relate to their own attractiveness, and whether they're attractive by conventional standards or not, or whether they want to be or not. Like they don't know how to walk in this world, because on the one hand, they get a lot of attention for it, and who doesn't like attention? I mean, I like attention. Everyone likes attention on some level, but it's also like, okay, well, what is this attention for? Is it just because I have, some pretty curves? Is it just because I bat my eyelashes? Or like, why am I getting this attention? What do the people who are giving me this attention want from me, and am I just being used as a sex object? Mm-hmm. So there's this kind of paradox to attractiveness that I see in particular a lot of women not knowing how to navigate it. So what do you say about that?
I see one of two things most often happening, which is the women not getting the attention are wishing they were getting it and are shrinking and are not in their own femininity, are not attracting and being magnetic in their lives because they're shut down.
Yeah.
Or the women that are getting the attention are feeling victimized by it and like it's too much and they don't know what to do with it. So neither of those ways of dealing with it, either shrinking because you're not feeling like you're getting enough, or shrinking because you're getting too much. This is the antithesis of what being powerful is. So I like the metaphor I use that helps me is I call it being the satellite dish. Mm. And so what I mean is, when attention is coming my way, I imagine my body as like a satellite dish where I extend really far out and wide, like huge satellite so that any energy, any attention coming my way is like captured, right? Because whether you think it's positive, negative, whatever qualifiers you put on it, that's energy. It's literal energy coming your way. And that energy can be used and harnessed. It doesn't have to be used and harnessed in the way that they have set for you, their agenda.
Right.
So the guy, you walk down the street, the guy cat calls you, you don't want to go on a date with him, but he's sending you energy.
Yeah.
So extend your satellite. Walk down the street as if you take up about 10 times the space that you take up, and welcome the energy coming in. But just like the satellite dish has like the cone that points in a very specific place. You can send a cell signal all the way to a satellite and back and zero in exactly the time and place that you want it. And so the same is true. So the energy comes in the satellite dish, and then you focus it where you want it. So that guy that I walked down the street and got energy from because he catcalled and made some lewd remark, that energy I have as then pointing towards this platform of talking to women about their empowerment.
Yeah.
And I don't have to say, I don't make the calculation that energy can't feed my purpose because it's all the same.
Right. Yeah.
And so so part of my teaching with women around this is to realize the energy coming. So there's some women that don't have their satellite dishes out, right? And so I usually encourage them to be able to extend and hold more of the sensation in their body. And because mostly it's that women can't handle the level of sensation. They're not comfortable with the level of discomfort.
That's such a great reframe where it's you get this attention, and we're talking just attention. I mean, it's different if you're like in a dark alley and someone's going to attack you. That's a different story. But just a general kind of attention, maybe cat calls that were unwanted, that kind of thing. That is the reality of most women, really.
Right. There's that wonderful video that you sent out.
Yeah.
That was followed a woman down the streets of New York.
Yeah, I mean, it's just mind-boggling.
It was crazy.
What the for a man who doesn't get that, like what the reality of
so there's a reason that we shrink.
Yeah, so it's frightening. But I want to stay on this one, and we're going to get to the active.
We'll get to the other one. We'll get there.
But this is really important. I talk to a lot of women who are confused about this one, and that there's a particular aspect that a lot of women I've talked to don't know how to navigate, which is when they are and this is very common, especially if a woman is attractive by conventional standards, when she's getting sexual attention, sexual interest, attraction, flirtatious vibes in a professional or business context from someone who might be, let's just say a man who might be useful to her for some business purpose, who might be an ally, strategic ally, business-wise, might be an investor, an employer, a customer, a client. And it's like, a lot of women are conflicted about this because on the one hand, they realize that they're getting this guy's attention, so they have an audience with him. But so they have the attention, they're happy about that, but they're really skeptical of the reason. So I've noticed, let's just say on a spectrum, there are probably the majority of women I talk to are on one side of the spectrum who they kind of shut down. They're like, nope, that's not. They cut off the energy entitled. Yes. They cut it off from the guy. They don't feel it in themselves. They label it as like totally inappropriate. Right. And I'm not arguing whether it is inappropriate or not, but this is how they relate to it. And then, there's some people on the other side of the spectrum who just totally just will use this is sleep. It's a stereotype, but it exists. There are people who do that, who just sleep their way to the top.
Their position is not on the merits of who they are and what they're about, but on the merits of how hot they were in bed and
right. And look, this is all politics, right? So if that's what some person decided was going to get her to the position she needed, I'm not here to judge that, but I would say that there is an integration, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on how to kind of integrate those two poles. Yeah.
Here's my version of the ideal, my humble version, for anyone that wants to listen, which is not shrinking. So the energy's coming your way, right? Let's say someone is attracted to you in a business context and is attracted to you in a sensual or sexual way, and you're not interested. So we'll start there, because if you are interested, then it's two consenting adults and have at it. That sounds fun to me.
Yeah.
So I don't have any issue. I think it's bizarre that we want to put each other in proximity with our work and then tell people they can't sleep with the people they work with. I think
that's a whole other discussion, but I think that's a total absurdity.
Who else are you going to sleep with if not the people?
If you're spending 80 hours a week, what are you going to?
Right. Anyway. Well, let's not get caught up on that. So let's look at the other scenario where you're getting attention. It's for sexuality. You're not wanting to turn it in that same way. To me, using my satellite dish metaphor, it's you allow that energy to come towards you. So you don't make the man bad and wrong and shut off, and so that he's emasculated and you're defeminized in that moment. You allow the energy to come in, but then with your satellite, you point it in the direction and have them fall in love with the thing that is most exciting to you. So he's giving you attraction, and you're saying, yes, fall in love with me for this cause at this company that I really want us to invest in.
Yeah.
I
love that. Wow. It's
like, and you have to learn how to, I sometimes call it like arriving in the situation, like Teflon. Mm-hmm. Do you know Teflon? Nothing sticks.
Yeah.
There's no hook.
Yeah.
So if I have a way of taking your energy in, having you feel positive for giving it to me, and then intimately channeling it in a direction that feels good for you and for me, but having no hooks. Yeah. Like Teflon, that just, it comes and you feel good having given it to me. Yeah. And I'm welcoming the beauty of my attraction. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. And God, it's so important to me that we do this social cause, or whatever it is. Then I'm not shutting down the energy. I'm actually just allowing it to flow, but I'm moving it in the direction. And I'm not allowing any hooks in. So you can't hook me, I'm not hooking you into some kind of relating. I'm literally just moving it in the direction. And so this is, to me, the ideal, because it doesn't cut the energy down, because that energy is wanting to go somewhere. He's wanting to put it somewhere.
Oh, yeah. He's very clear about where he wants to put it.
So you're just going to be clear about where the right place for him to put it is.
Yeah, because think about it. It's like you were talking about the active masculine is penetration. So if the guy's really attracted, he's super clear on what he wants to penetrate and how and where.
Right.
So it's like what I hear you saying,
penetrate, but point him in the right direction.
Redirect the cock energy. So it's like, okay,
Right.
the cock energy is coming at you.
Wrong making.
Yeah.
Without having to hide it, fade it, or fix it. And most women, when they are in the face of that and they really don't want it in that department, they don't know the uncomfortableness in our bodies. It's really hard, actually. I mean, it's something for men to be more compassionate about.
Yeah. Men.
It's a lot. You men are emoting so much penetrative energy our way, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
That it's a lot for us women to hold.
Yeah. If men, one of the things I really want to contribute to men is to be more conscious of their penetrating energy. Yeah. They don't we don't get how intense it can be, and how, especially when it's not wanted.
It's sensitive.
It's often not wanted, or it might be wanted if it was like brought in a little more gently. But like guys are so unaware of like how uncomfortable they make women, and
So we can't childproof our men. We can't childproof our world. So if I'm speaking to the women, yes, if I can have the conversation with the men, it's going to be about realizing exactly what you said. It's like realize the impact of your energy and land it where it's invited. And realize that that's hot.
And
if it's invited, it's hot.
And use a little.
If it isn't, it's not.
Totally. And if you want it to be invited, then seduce the invitation.
Right.
Use the passive feminine. Like not what's called seduction. Like 99% of what's called seduction is pickup, which is for the most part a heaping pile of bullshit. I mean, there's a few little gems here and there, but it's mostly that whole discourse is a bunch of bullshit from my perspective. But seduction is as old as the ages, and if you can seduce someone to be interested in that energy, that's a softer on ramp. I want to move to the
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we were talking about I think we covered that topic well. The passive feminine and
I was saying just to put a thumbnail in it. If I'm talking to the women, we can't like I said, we can't childproof the world. And so you're going to have this energy. It's a lot of energy, and I actually want to teach women how to hold more of it.
Yeah.
And it's literally becoming more comfortable inside of the discomfort.
Yeah.
And so I like to help people expand their range, like I said earlier, range. And so what happens is, as in the human experience, when things are too painful on the edge, we either run away or we collapse.
Yeah.
And if things are too pleasurable, guess what? We either run away or we collapse. Even an orgasm, right, is your body saying, I can't take anymore. I have to bring you back down.
Yeah.
Right? And so literally either pleasure or pain creates that level of discomfort so that your body can only hold so much of it before it runs away or collapses. The same is true psychically, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. Mm-hmm. So these three domains, the body domain of literal pain, the emotional domain of what you can handle as pleasure and pain in your system, and what you can handle like spiritually speaking, I want to help women to expand the range of what they can be comfortable feeling. Because if they can be comfortable inside the discomfort, then they actually are resourced in that place. So rather than being cut off from their resourcedness, they can actually powerfully channel that energy that's coming their way, because all it is energy. We are labeling it pleasure and pain. We're labeling it as positive and negative. That's a label. Yeah. It's all energy. And if you can widen your container, hold more of it, then that is yours for the taking. If you can be resourced at the same time that you're holding it, instead of shaking and unable to handle it all, then that's powerful. That's being powerful. That's what I want to give women a connection to. That comfort inside the discomfort, where there's so much energy coming their way, their body, their mind, their emotions can barely handle it, and then they realize they can. And then they put it towards what they really care about. That's exciting to me.
That is so powerful. There's a metaphor. You're a martial artist. What is the main modality that you've studied?
I studied 8 different modalities. I was very lucky. I was in an incredible martial arts studio, Blankenship Martial Arts in Austin, Texas, and he had 20 different instructors, each specializing in different areas of martial arts.
Wow.
So I did hard styles, soft styles, linear styles.
Well, there's one. The reason I brought up is there's a modality that I just think is so profound, which is Aikido, and I actually want to study it just actually more philosophically than for the martial art itself. I'm just so interested in the philosophy where the whole idea is that you take someone's attack energy towards you, and you assure that you don't get harmed by it, but you also assure that they don't get harmed by it either, and they get redirected. Yeah. And if you're listening, if you go to Google, to YouTube and type in Aikido, Aikido, there's a bunch of videos, and you can watch how people redirect energy. Yeah. Which is, I think, what you're talking about here is how to redirect the energy.
I want to just say, Morihei Ueshiba, who is considered one of the founders, creators. There's films of him. Yeah. And when you see the founder of Aikido doing Aikido, what looks like is happening is people are coming at him full force, and he's literally, you guys can't see me, but like flicking his wrist or moving his body like 5 degrees, and people are flying.
Yeah.
And it's just like droves of people coming at him, and he's barely moving.
Yeah.
He's just literally dancing, redirecting the energy. It's a dance. It's harmonizing. People misunderstand martial arts. Martial arts isn't about force against force. That's when you stop doing martial arts. The minute it was that's a clang. That's a oops. We stopped being martial artists. Mm-hmm.
That's just brawling at that point.
That's brawling.
Yeah.
Martial arts is about reacting, sword of no sword, mind, where the mind goes away, and you're reacting in real time, like a dance, to the person coming at you. And in perfect harmony, you're harmonizing your movements. Now that's martial arts, and that's Aikido, specifically Aikido.
Yeah.
So the passive feminine is the emotional and sexual Aikido.
Yeah.
And one that can be used. And I neither want you to shrink and not actually be loud enough or wide enough to be getting any attention, nor do I want you to be having your satellite dish wide but having no focuser.
Yeah.
And so I find the woman either have no dish or have no focuser.
Yeah.
And so they need both.
Yeah. I want to put a shout out real quick to one other person who I think who I've learned a lot about this is my ex-wife and my current friend and your friend, Jenna Laflamme. I'm just in awe of how she does this because she's a very beautiful woman. She gets tons of sexual attention from men. Yeah. I've never, ever once seen her even slightly tripped up by sexual attention from men. No. And I've never seen her allow it to get to a place where she was uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I always see her just redirect it in just the right way. So it's like, oh, okay, this guy's attracted to me. Well, I'm not attracted to him, but he could be a good friend. So let me redirect it. And, oh, now we're friends. Or, okay, this guy is attracted to me. And, I might like to flirt with him a little bit. So I'll flirt with him. And out of that flirtation will come, a business partnership, or like she just has this incredible way of just aikidoing the sexual attention that comes to her. So, ladies, if you're listening to this and you're wanting some guidance, in addition, to Jennifer, who's just talked very eloquently, Jenna Laflamme is another person who I think really gets this point very well. Yeah.
She gets it, and what's another beautiful thing that comes from her that. Out of that is that there's no clinging and neediness to the attention either. When you can redirect it, then you don't need it to land in any particular place. And so you're not that kind of endless pit of like neediness, which also doesn't feel good to give attention to.
Right. Oh, right? Totally. Like, so the other side of this is people who are beautiful by traditional standards or not, on all levels of that can have a lot of neediness around wanting to be seen as beautiful. And it's like, okay, wanting to be seen, but for what? Just so that you can feel beautiful?
That's a push, not a pull energy, right? You're trying to make that happen.
Yeah.
Trying to force it versus attracting it, seducing it out of people. Yeah. Which is the opposite energy.
I'll say one more point on this and let's move on. I think really, currently right now, the men still own most of the financial resources, all that's starting to change. They control the military. They're in control of a lot of the power structures of the world. And just like we talked about in the last interview, we want the women deciding what happens, or the feminine deciding what happens.
And the masculine in us deciding how.
Yeah. And so what I would say is I think part of how that's going to happen, it's going to use all of these 4 forms of power. Yeah. But I would really I would love if a woman was listening to this and listening to you and got inspired and said, hey, I'm going to use my natural attractiveness, whatever it is now, to redirect people in power, to use that power for better purposes.
Yeah, to fall in love with what you're in love with.
Yeah.
It's literally have them fall in love with what you're in love with. So if you're in love with some particular passion in your life or some particular cause or some particular way of being, have them fall in love with it with you and have that level of devotion that they would have. And that's the passive feminine. It's an incredibly powerful force. But that's the 3. We've only talked about 3.
Yeah. So let's talk about number 4.
So let's talk about number 4. And if we ever wanted to double down on any one of these, we could probably spend a whole hour or more on any one of these. But here's the last, and definitely not the least, which is the active feminine form of power. And she is creative, intuitive expression herself. So if the active masculine has a plan and has decided we're doing this, right? Here's how it's going. The active feminine feels the field, drops the plan, and goes, wait a minute, this is actually what's needed. It's a felt creative experience of intuition, right? Not a linearly decided, preordained plan, but the natural innate ability for women in particular, but all of us as humans, to be able to take multiple simultaneous inputs all at once, the entire field and the space between each individual and the environment, and then to use all of those multiple inputs to fuel what I call intuition, which is literally just taking your inputs from linear, past, to non-time-based simultaneous, and then allowing that to decide what happens. And that's why I call it creative expression. It's like it's moment by moment. She's responding moment by moment to this is what's needed in this moment. Maybe in this moment it's that I laugh or cry. Maybe in this moment I step back. Maybe in this moment I feel you. Maybe in another moment I take us outside because we've been in the boardroom too long and we need a fresh perspective. And it's a willingness to let go of the plan and to feel the field. And that tapping is a magical power, I would call it, that women have slightly more connection to. I think men have it too. We all have it. But that is, you have to get quiet enough to actually hear it, because it's underneath all of the rest of the kind of top layers on your consciousness. That's underneath. It's like the impulse. There's an impulse, subtle. If you're quiet, you can hear an impulse. And that impulse is telling you something. And if you listen, that impulse will never lead you astray, because it's operating on vastly more intelligence. Vastly. I mean, it's the difference between you and one kind of life and one set of experiences and the set of experiences of the entire human race.
Yeah. Yes. It's the subconscious intelligence.
Yes.
The way what you just said, what it kind of sparks in my mind about how to think about it is that we have our conscious intelligence, which we're is what you do to solve a math problem or figure out how to analyze. Yeah. And then, but our body does have an like when you get a cut, you don't know how the cut heals consciously, but your body knows. There's intelligence in your body. Right. So this is sort of in between those two. It's the realm of art where a true artist doesn't really know where the ideas come from. Right. They just seem to appear out of nowhere.
That's why it feels mysterious, because our linear mind can't give it a beginning, a middle, and an end. Because it's literally so many things simultaneously occurring into your consciousness at once. There's no way to make sense of the how and the what and the why. It just is. I don't know why, but I know that we need to stop talking and massage each other, for instance. I'm not saying we're going to stop talking because we're doing this interview, but like it's and there's an impression, an impulse, and those are sacred. Mm-hmm. And it's powerful, like powerful on the level of it up-levels our entire evolutionary capability as a human species if we can tap it. That's that powerful. But it's probably one of the ones hardest for people to go to. Artists go there often.
Yeah.
They, improvisers live in this space, right? If you've ever experienced an improviser.
Like your husband.
Oh, my God. He'll play the room. And what he does when he plays, or he's a pianist, he plays all sorts of instruments, but he'll feel the space between him and every human there. Feel what's happening in their bodies and in his emotional awareness. Expand his emotional awareness outside of himself, include the entire room, and then make art out of it. And he doesn't know what note's going to come next. So it's that level of trust. And it has that capacity. It's like the entire universe coming through you. All you need to do is get out of the way.
Yeah.
And allow that intuition. Yeah. You don't need to know anything more than the next note.
Yeah. So we've got these 4 forms, which I think is just such a brilliant 2x2 kind of distinction there, because I think that just distinguishing between masculine and feminine isn't enough. I think that adding this extra layer between the passive and the active is really powerful. And that's a Jennifer Russell original there, which is going to be in your book chapter. What is the chapter called? Oh,
it's Burning the Ivory Tower. The 4 Faces of Incorruptible Power. Wow,
burning the ivory tower. I'm a fan of that concept. Tell us about that phrase. Yeah. Why do you call it that?
Yeah. It's to call some imagery into every woman's heart that we can relate to, whether we identify or don't, of being the damsel in distress in top of her beautiful tower, hidden away from the world and everything around. In her little ivory tower, being made safe, being protected by her knight in shining armor. And it's really to call in that imagery and to tell you to get out of your tower, to walk down the steps and burn it, and to instead be taking the action that you need to be taking. Instead of hiding, be living fully. And so it's me calling women out to living fully, because we need you. We need you. I mean, not just because I said last time, not just because it's fair or we'd be better treating each other. It's because literally the world is starving for the feminine influence. And so I want you to burn your tower and stop hiding in it and stop expecting the night to come save you.
Yeah. What I'm seeing now is an integration. I see the answer to the question we started with of the integration between the personal and the political, because it's okay. You're saying the world needs women to. I completely agree with that. What you just said, and so for order for women to show up the way you're calling for, absolutely they have to do this inner work that you're describing.
They do, and so if it's not clear, like. When I work with a woman or a man, I've worked actually equally with men and women. What I actually do is look at which of these 4 faces is your go-to. Like which one of these 4 faces are you drawn to as your natural? And then I look for which of the 4 faces are you the least drawn to? Which of the one are you actually scared to go to? Yeah. And if you're scared to go there, then that's where you're leaving your power on the table. Yeah. And so what do I say to the woman worried about going into the boardroom? I say, can you feel which form of power is the most needed there? And are you willing in that moment to fully surrender to being that form of that face of power? And so I like to teach women not just how to be active feminine or passive feminine. If a woman is missing their active masculine, fuck yeah, I'm going to go down with her. I'm going to teach her how to penetrate the space with her values, and I'm going to unlock her ability there. Equally, if you're unable to be passive feminine, you're not able to attract anyone towards your cause, I'm going to help seduce you, and I'm going to help you seduce yourself into even your own cause, let alone everyone else. And so I like to teach women to do all 4 faces. And
this is where your worship of range comes in. Yes. Because what I see, I mean, people in general, and we're talking about women here, will often be really good at one, but then they get tripped up because it's like if you could only imagine if you could only talk in one tone of voice, you would actually not. Think about that literally. If you could only talk in one tone of voice, you would not get very far in life, even if it was a very appealing tone of voice.
Yeah, it could be the one that you would most choose if you had to choose one for the rest of your life. But it's still a limit on the range of human experience. Like you can go in infinite directions all at once as a woman. Like let's universe through our beings and have the full range at our fingertips. That's what I want to give women access to. And how does that relate to the bigger level conversation? Because if you can't be powerful individually with your own sovereignty and aligned with transcendent values, then you're not going to be able to play the game at the global level. And so we've got to start you somewhere. And if I can get you powerfully connected to your own sense of values and with any individual penetrating the space, holding space when it's needed, attracting people to you and then creatively and intuitively guiding you through what you need to do in your world, then if we point that level of power towards a cause you care about, then we can really make hay. Then we can really do something special.
How do you inspire someone who comes to you and they are coming for general kind of personal growth reasons? They're stuck in a relationship or a job they don't like, and you're helping them access these forms of power for their personal. How do you then spark that fire that says, hey, let's connect your personal power to this global evolution revolution that's happening, if they've never thought about that connection before?
I almost don't want to share what just came up, but I'm going to share it.
Oh, now you got to share it.
I said, well, God, you're going to bore me otherwise.
That's good. Yeah.
So anyway, that was a little tongue in cheek, but if your problems are that small, you don't need to be having a conversation with somebody like me.
Yeah.
You actually you can, and I'd be awesome, and I'd help. I love helping people through that, but I guess I believe in the adage, how you do anything is how you do everything, right? And how that applies is that your life is a holographic fractal expression. So how you're doing relationship fractals out to how you're doing business, fractals out to how you're doing community relationships, and so on and so forth. And so I know that if my fractal way in is through you treating your husband better, or your wife, or your girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, and we start at that little micro level, that if I can actually help you there, that you won't be able to help it. If I do my work right, then it'll be a part of your being. And then you won't be able to walk through the world without being that different way, such that anyone that interacts with you is going to feel it. Now, it won't take us long for things to matter to you beyond your egoic self, because it's natural, actually. Humans, once they can actually just get their base needs met, like love, safety, belonging, right? Like those base needs, that we naturally go up the triangle like Maslow. We go up to self-actualization, where we actually want to be in service. So once we know that we're set, once you know you're going to be loved, once you know that you're going to be safe, once you know all those things, it's actually natural. And so I just like to unlock people's natural tendency so that I can help them feel full, whole, and complete in themselves, so that they then naturally just decide they want to be in service.
Yeah.
And that happens. That'll just happen. If I can help someone get out of scarcity in their minds, then they'll go there. Yeah. And then I'm happy to go there with them.
I really liked your response there. Like, well, you're just going to bore me and I'm not the right person. Because if you think about it, think of like a sports coach. There's ones that you could hire that will just help you improve your game. Right. Like, let's say golf, for example. You can go to a golf course and hire someone there, and they'll help you. And you say what your goals are. I want to, improve my score by this much. And you'll find a coach that can work with you. But if there's certain coaches who, the only way you can work with them is if you're like, I'm going to win such and such tournament. like the global championship or whatever it is. And if they think you're a legitimate candidate for possibly winning that, then they might work with you. It's like, what game are you playing? And there's certain, I don't know if you want to call yourself, what would you refer to yourself, like an advisor, instigator,
catalyzer of conscious leaders.
Catalyzer of conscious leaders. I like that one.
Yeah.
It's like you don't come to Jennifer if you're not wanting to be catalyzed as a conscious leader and and of something that's going to have a global impact.
I want to know who other than you will be better off with this work, with this evolution. And I don't mean it to come out like at all like exclusionary or highbrow or I'm too good for it or anything like that. Well, that's not exactly what I mean.
I know. No, but this is like the level 7 thing where you do actually have to say, okay, we're going to prioritize like people who have a bigger mission. Yeah.
For the reason I say burn the ivory tower, for your own fulfillment, like you don't actually arrive at that self-actualized level of fulfillment in life until you cross over and realize that your needs are met, and then it's time for you to do more than just have a life about meeting your needs.
Yeah.
And that, to me, that life, I don't think you'll be satisfied. And I want more than anything for you to be alive, satisfied, thriving, and creating the world that you see, that you are the universe that you formerly thought you were inside of, that you are creating that universe.
Yeah.
And so I just want to help you create it, and I want to be part of it.
Yeah. Well, Jennifer, I think you are one of the great experts on integrating the personal and the political, the individual and the global. Do you have any final words of wisdom for us on how these two can be integrated?
Yeah. Let's see. Final parting thoughts. You realize that as you become more mobile in your consciousness, as you realize that at any given moment you can identify as self, you can identify as family, you can identify as community, you can identify as planet, you can identify as human species, that when you identify at each of those levels, that whole new realms open up to you, whole new dimensions open up to you, new fears, new hopes, new dreams, new aspirations, new resources the planet brings to you. And so it's really up to you to identify at a different kind of level of consciousness, whether it's yourself or the planet, and every gradation in between. And there's no right or wrong answer. There's always a time and place. If you exclude identifying as self, then your whole life won't work. And if you only identify as planet, then you fail to see the simple things in your life, right? So it's all about being mobile and realizing that it'll unlock potentials in you that you didn't realize were there. And so I just encourage you to be on that exploration with yourself.
And when you say being mobile, you're not necessarily referring to geographically. You're referring to in all these different, it's like mobility of identity.
It's really literally recoding your identity. Recoding your identity such that you can identify not only as self, but at multiple layers and back and forth and go in between. And I like to help people to recode their sense of identity.
Thank you so much for the time today, Jennifer. This has been an enlightening dialogue, as they always are with you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. For those who are listening, if you're inspired to find out more about Jennifer, her site is Jennifer S. Russell, and the last name is with 2 S's and 2 L's, jennifersrussell.com. She's also on Facebook. And this is a woman to watch here because she is a leader of leaders. She is sparking this new integration of how women can get everything they want in their own lives through being of service to the values and mission that they care about in the world. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Yeah, great to be here. Thank you.